The massive alien ship called Eternal Judgment moved through space like a metal mountain. Behind it followed 846 more warships, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. The ships were black and silver, covered in strange symbols that glowed red in the darkness of space. Admiral Zexathara stood on the bridge of his flagship, his reptilian eyes watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. Zexathara was tall and covered in dark green scales that caught the light from the ship's controls. His species, the Draconis, had conquered 12 worlds before humans even learned to make fire. He had personally led the forces that crushed the rebellion on Kepler-7 just 5 years ago. The memory made him smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Admiral, we are approaching the third planet," said his navigation officer, a blue-skinned alien from the water world of Aquanus. "The humans call it Earth." "I know what they call it," Zexathara replied. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "How long have these creatures had spaceflight?" "Our records show they achieved faster-than-light travel 52 years ago, Admiral. They now control colonies on 12 star systems." Zexathara's eyes narrowed. 52 years was nothing. Most species took centuries to expand beyond their home systems. The humans were growing too fast, spreading like some kind of disease across the galaxy. The Galactic Council had decided it was time to stop them. "Send the standard ultimatum," he ordered. "Full translation protocols. I want every human to understand exactly what we are offering them." Down on Earth, President Catherine Blake sat in her office 300 feet below the surface. The underground bunker had been built during the old nuclear wars, but now it served as the command center for humanity's defense against alien threats. The walls were lined with screens showing data from across the solar system. Blake was 48 years old with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. She had been president for 6 years, elected after the Proxima crisis when the previous administration had failed to handle first contact with hostile aliens. She wore a simple black suit, no jewelry except for a small American flag pin on her collar. General Ryan Martinez stood beside her desk, his weathered face serious as he studied the incoming transmission. Martinez was 62 years old, a career military man who had fought in 3 different wars before the aliens arrived. His gray hair was cut short and his brown eyes missed nothing. He had been preparing for this day since he first learned about the Galactic Council. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet," reported Lieutenant Karen White from her communications station. "It's being broadcast on all frequencies in all human languages." "Put it on screen," Blake ordered. The main display flickered and showed Admiral Zexathara's reptilian face. Behind him, other alien species stood in formation. The blue-skinned Aquanus, the insect-like Chitauri, and others that humans had only seen in intelligence reports. "People of Earth," Zexathara began, his words translated by the ship's computer into perfect English. "I am Admiral Zexathara of the Draconis Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. Your species has expanded beyond acceptable limits. You have colonized star systems without Council permission. You have developed weapons that violate galactic law. You have refused to submit to proper authority." Blake's expression never changed, but Martinez saw her hands tighten on the arms of her chair. "The Council offers you one chance for mercy," the Admiral continued. "You will surrender all colonies beyond your home system. You will submit to Council oversight and accept permanent observers on all your worlds. You will destroy your military fleets and limit your technology to approved levels. You will pay tribute equal to 30% of your total economic output." Martinez felt his jaw clench. 30% would cripple human civilization, keeping them weak and dependent forever. "If you refuse these generous terms," Zexathara said, his smile showing those terrible teeth, "we will demonstrate the price of defying the Council. You have 72 hours to decide. Choose wisely." The transmission ended. The bunker fell silent except for the quiet hum of the air recycling systems. Every person in the room waited for their president to speak. Blake stood up slowly and walked to the main screen, which now showed the alien fleet in high orbit around Earth. 847 ships, enough firepower to crack planets. Any sane leader would surrender immediately. "General Martinez," she said quietly, "what's the status of our orbital defense platforms?" "All systems are online and ready, ma'am." "But against that many ships," Martinez shook his head. "The platforms won't last 10 minutes in a straight fight." Blake nodded. She had expected that answer. The platforms were not meant to win a conventional battle. They were meant to buy time. And our deep space assets? Positioned and waiting for orders, ma'am. Blake turned to face her staff. These men and women had worked with her for years, preparing for this exact moment. They had studied alien tactics, reverse-engineered captured technology, and built weapons the Council didn't know existed. They had planned and trained and waited. "Ladies and gentlemen," Blake said, her voice carrying clearly through the bunker, "Admiral Zexathara has made a mistake. He thinks we're like the other species the Council has conquered. He thinks we'll be frightened by his big ships and surrender without a fight." She walked to her communications console and pressed a button that would broadcast her words to every human colony, every ship, every outpost across 12 star systems. "The Galactic Council seems to have forgotten something important about humanity," she said. "We don't surrender. We adapt." Blake ended the transmission and turned to Martinez. For the first time since the aliens arrived, she smiled. It was not a warm smile or a happy smile. It was cold and sharp like the edge of a blade. "General, initiate Protocol Omega. It's time they learned why Earth never fell to any invader." Martinez grinned and reached for his secure communicator. Protocol Omega was the plan they had hoped never to use but had spent decades preparing. Hidden bases would activate, sleeper agents would emerge, and weapons would power up across the galaxy. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Let's show these reptiles what humans do to bullies." Above them, the alien fleet waited in their perfect formation, confident that the primitive humans would surrender within hours. They had no idea that every move they made was being watched, recorded, and analyzed by sensors they couldn't detect. The 72-hour countdown had begun, but Admiral Zexathara had already lost. He just didn't know it yet. The alien fleet hung in space above Earth like dark storm clouds. Admiral Zexathara walked the corridors of his flagship, checking on his crew. 48 hours had passed since he delivered the ultimatum. The humans had not responded. This was normal. Most species needed time to accept their defeat. On the bridge, his officers monitored human communications. They heard panic in some cities, protests in others, but no official surrender. The Draconis Admiral was not worried. He had seen this pattern before on 17 different worlds. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting increased activity in their orbital stations." Zexathara studied the display. The humans had 12 defense platforms around their planet, crude weapons compared to Council technology. "Probably preparing their surrender broadcast," he said. "Or perhaps planning some desperate last stand. Either way, it changes nothing." What the Admiral did not know was that deep beneath Earth's ocean something was stirring. The Mariana Station sat 7 miles below the Pacific Ocean, hidden in a trench that humans claimed was used for scientific research. Captain Lisa Rodriguez stood in the command center, watching her crew prepare for launch. Rodriguez was 34 years old with black hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her brown eyes were focused and calm as she studied the tactical displays. She commanded the USS Phantom, one of 40 ships that officially did not exist. The vessels were sleek and black, designed to be invisible to alien sensors. "Captain, all systems are green," reported her chief engineer, a young man named Pete Johnson. "The cloaking field is stable and we're ready to launch." Rodriguez nodded. The Phantom used technology stolen from a Council scout ship 5 years ago during the Proxima incident. Human engineers had improved it, making it better than the original. The aliens thought they were the only ones with invisible ships. They were wrong. "Take us up, Mr. Johnson. Silent running." The Phantom rose through the dark water, its hull adapting to match the ocean around it. 39 other ships did the same from hidden bases around the world. They had been waiting in secret for 3 years, crews trained and ready for this exact moment. Far from Earth, in the cold space between Neptune and Pluto, more ships waited. These vessels looked like asteroids or pieces of space junk, but they were actually mobile weapons platforms. Commander Jake Harrison sat in the command chair of the largest platform, studying reports from across the solar system. Harrison was 41 years old with red hair and green eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light of his ship. He had been stationed out here for 2 years pretending to run a mining operation. His crew of 60 humans had grown tired of the deception. But they understood why it was necessary. "Sir, we're receiving activation codes from Earth Command," reported his communications officer, a woman named Susan Taylor. "Protocol Omega is now active." Harrison smiled grimly. Protocol Omega was the plan that would either save humanity or get them all killed. There was no middle ground. "Send confirmation to all hidden assets," he ordered. Operation Blackout begins in 18 hours. On the moon of Europa, Dr. Kevin Thompson worked in his laboratory beneath the ice. Thompson was 53 years old with gray hair and tired blue eyes behind thick glasses. He had been captured by aliens during the Proxima crisis and spent 6 months as their prisoner. The experience had taught him valuable lessons about alien biology. His laboratory was officially listed as a research station studying Jupiter's radiation. In reality, it was a weapons development facility. Thompson had created biological agents specifically designed to target each species in the Council fleet. The weapons would not kill, but they would make the aliens very sick very quickly. "Doctor," called his assistant, "a young woman named Maria Santos. We just received the activation signal." Thompson looked up from his work. He had hoped this day would never come, but he was ready. "Begin loading the delivery systems. We have 18 hours to get everything in position." Back on Earth, General Martinez stood in the war room surrounded by displays showing the positions of every human asset in the solar system. Most of his staff thought they were looking at maybe 50 ships and a dozen defense platforms. They had no idea about the real size of humanity's fleet. Martinez was connected by secure quantum communication to commanders across 12 star systems. What the aliens thought were peaceful colonies were actually military bases disguised as civilian settlements. Each colony had enough firepower to destroy a planet. "General, all deep space assets report ready," said Colonel Amy Chen, his intelligence chief. Chen was 38 years old with short black hair and sharp dark eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 10 years studying alien psychology and knew exactly how to manipulate their fears. "What about our friends in the Council?" Martinez asked. Chen smiled. "Ambassador Vexhai confirms that the revolution will begin as planned. 17 worlds are ready to declare independence the moment we engage the fleet." Martinez nodded. Ambassador Vexhai was a high-ranking council member who had been secretly working with humanity for 15 years. He represented a growing number of aliens who were tired of the Council's oppression. On Luna Base, Colonel Danny Park supervised the final preparations for humanity's most ambitious deception. Park was 29 years old with blonde hair and blue eyes, the youngest officer ever to command a lunar facility. His job was to make sure the aliens never suspected what was really happening. "Sir, the fake surrender broadcast is ready," reported his aide, Lieutenant Tom Miller. "It will transmit automatically in 6 hours." Park grinned. The broadcast would show President Blake appearing to surrender, asking the aliens to come closer to receive humanity's formal submission. It would be the last mistake Admiral Zexathera ever made. Above Earth, the alien fleet maintained its formation. They monitored human communications and detected what seemed like preparation for surrender. Radio chatter suggested that human leaders were arguing about the terms of submission. Everything appeared normal. Admiral Zexathara retired to his quarters, confident that within 24 hours he would be the conqueror of another species. His career would be complete. The Council would reward him with governorship of this entire sector. He fell asleep while human ships moved into position around his fleet. Invisible vessels that his sensors could not detect surrounded the alien formation. Weapons that he did not know existed powered up in the darkness. Agents that he had never suspected prepared to broadcast revolution across the galaxy. The countdown continued. In 18 hours, Admiral Zexathara would learn that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first encountered aliens. Every diplomatic meeting had been reconnaissance. Every trade agreement had been intelligence gathering. Every peaceful contact had been preparation for the day when humans would have to fight for their freedom. The aliens thought they were conquering primitives who had stumbled onto space travel. They were about to discover what happened when you threatened a species that had evolved from predators who never stopped hunting. Admiral Zexathara woke to the sound of alarms screaming through his flagship. He rolled out of his sleeping pod and grabbed his uniform, his reptilian mind trying to process what was happening. The alarm pattern indicated incoming transmission, not attack. Perhaps the humans were finally ready to surrender. He rushed to the bridge where his officers stood at their stations, looking confused and alert. The main screen showed President Blake sitting at her desk in what appeared to be a government building on Earth. Her face was calm, but her eyes looked defeated. "Admiral Zexathara," she began, "the United Earth government has made its decision. We cannot fight your superior forces. We are prepared to discuss terms of surrender. The Draconis admiral felt satisfaction wash over him. Another species had seen the wisdom of submission to the council. "Bring us closer to their planet," he ordered. "We will accept their surrender in person." His navigation officer, the blue-skinned Aquanus named Kelptar, worked his controls. "Yes, sir." Moving the fleet to accept surrender formation. The 847 ships of the Council fleet began moving toward Earth in a ceremonial pattern. They had done this 17 times before on 17 different worlds. The formation was designed to show the conquered species the full might of their new masters. What none of them noticed was that the space around them was not as empty as it appeared. Captain Lisa Rodriguez watched from the bridge of the USS Phantom as the alien fleet moved into the trap. Her ship hung invisible in space just 2 miles from the alien flagship, close enough to count the lights on its hull. 39 other human ships waited in similar positions, their cloaking fields making them invisible to alien sensors. "Captain," whispered her tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, "all ships report ready. We have clear shots on their command vessels." Rodriguez nodded. She had been waiting 3 years for this moment. Her finger hovered over the firing button while she waited for the signal from Earth. On Luna Base, Colonel Danny Park sat in his command chair watching the alien fleet move into position. The fake surrender broadcast had worked perfectly. The aliens were bunched together in a tight formation, exactly where humanity needed them. "All units, this is Luna Base," he spoke into his communicator. "The targets are in position. Operation Blackout begins now." The first shots came not from Earth's orbital platforms, but from the invisible ships surrounding the alien fleet. The USS Phantom fired a quantum torpedo that struck the alien flagship's shields and did something impossible. Instead of exploding, the torpedo turned the shields into a weapon that attacked nearby ships. Admiral Zexathara was thrown to the deck as his ship shook violently. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in red while damage reports flooded in from across the fleet. "What happened?" he roared. "Where did that attack come from?" His tactical officer, an insect-like Chitari named Klikth, studied his instruments with growing panic. "Sir, I am detecting multiple human vessels surrounding our formation. They appear to be using some kind of cloaking technology." "Impossible," Zexthara snarled. "Humans do not have cloaking devices." More ships decloaked around the alien fleet. The USS Phantom was joined by 39 other vessels that looked nothing like the crude human ships the Council had seen before. These ships were sleek and deadly, incorporating technology from a dozen different alien species but improved by human engineering. Captain Rodriguez opened a communication channel to the alien flagship. "Admiral Zexathara, this is Captain Rodriguez of the United Earth Defense Force. You wanted to see our military capabilities. Congratulations, you are the first aliens to witness them." The alien admiral stared at the screen showing the human captain. She was young and calm, nothing like the terrified primitive he had expected to face. "How do you have invisible ships?" he demanded. Rodriguez smiled coldly. "The same way we have quantum torpedoes and shield converters. We learn from our enemies and make their technology better." On Earth, Colonel Jake Harrison activated Project Blackout from his hidden command center. Quantum disruptors hidden throughout the solar system came online, sending powerful signals toward the alien fleet. But these signals did not just disrupt communications. They carried a computer virus designed by Earth's best programmers. The virus spread through the alien network faster than their computers could react. Ship after ship reported system failures as the virus took control of their navigation, weapons, and life support systems. What had seemed like an overwhelming advantage became a deadly weakness in seconds. General Martinez broadcast from Earth Command on all frequencies, so every alien in the fleet could hear him. "You wanted to know about human military capabilities. Let me explain something about my species. We do not just fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies can never threaten us again." As he spoke, more human ships appeared throughout the solar system. They rose from beneath the ice of Europa, emerged from the rings of Saturn, and decloaked from positions near every planet. What the aliens had thought was a system with maybe 50, human ships actually contained over 3,000. Vessels Admiral Zexathara watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet was surrounded and outgunned by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. "This is impossible," he repeated. "Our intelligence report said humans were barely capable of space travel." On the main screen, President Blake appeared again. But now she was not alone. Standing beside her was Ambassador Vexhai, a high-ranking council member that Zexithara recognized immediately. "Some of your own people understand what you have forgotten," Blake said with that same cold smile from her first broadcast. "Humanity does not just fight to win. We fight to ensure our enemies can never threaten us again." Ambassador Vexhai stepped forward. He was tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. His species, the Travelers, were known for their intelligence and long memory. "Admiral Zexthera," he said in his musical voice, "the Council's time is over. These humans offer something we never did, true partnership among equals." Zexithara felt his world collapse around him. "You are a traitor to the Council." "I am loyal to my people," Vexhai replied. "The Council has brought us nothing but endless war and stagnation. Humanity offers us a chance to grow again." The battle was over before it truly began. Half the alien fleet was disabled by the virus. A quarter was destroyed by the surprise attack, and the remaining ships found themselves surrounded by superior human forces. Admiral Zexithara had no choice but to surrender. As his flagship was boarded by human marines, he realized the terrible truth. This had never been about conquering Earth. The humans had been preparing to replace the Council itself. Every diplomatic contact, every trade mission, every peaceful interaction had been preparation for galactic revolution. The cold smile that President Blake had shown was not the smile of someone facing defeat. It was the smile of a predator who had finally cornered her prey. The space around Earth looked like a graveyard of broken ships. Pieces of alien vessels drifted in the darkness while human rescue teams moved between the wreckage, pulling survivors from the debris. Admiral Zexithara sat in a holding cell aboard the human ship New Dawn, staring at the metal walls and trying to understand how everything had gone so wrong. Captain Danny Park of the battleship New Tokyo led a squadron through the asteroid belt, hunting down the few alien ships that had tried to escape. His vessels moved with deadly precision, using modified mining equipment to launch massive rocks at incredible speeds. The alien energy shields that could stop plasma weapons were useless against simple stones moving faster than bullets. "Target acquired," reported his weapons officer, a young woman named Kelly Adams. "Alien cruiser attempting to hide behind asteroid 77 Alpha." Park nodded. "Launch the package." Full velocity. A chunk of iron ore the size of a house launched from the New Tokyo's cargo bay. The mining ship's magnetic accelerators pushed it to nearly the speed of light. When it hit the alien cruiser, the ship simply vanished in a flash of energy. No explosion, no debris, just gone. "That's the last of the runners," Park reported over the communication system. "All escape routes are sealed." Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Chen sat in her office at the Psychological Warfare Division, watching alien communications traffic with satisfaction. Chen was 35 years old, with long black hair and dark eyes that seemed to see right through people. She had spent 15 years studying how different alien species thought and what they feared most. Her team was broadcasting carefully crafted messages to each alien species in their own languages. To the water-dwelling Aquinas, she sent recordings of their homeworld's oceans drying up. To the insect-like Chitauri, she broadcast images of their hives being burned. To the reptilian Draconis, she showed their eggs being crushed. None of these things were actually happening, but the aliens did not know that. Panic spread through the remaining ships as crews began to believe their homeworlds were under attack. Some vessels tried to break formation to return home. Others simply shut down their systems and waited for orders that would never come. "Ma'am," reported her assistant, "Lieutenant Mike Davis, we're receiving surrender requests from 47 alien vessels. They want to know if their families are safe." Chen smiled coldly. "Tell them their families will be perfectly safe as long as they cooperate. Fear is just the first step. Now we need to give them hope." On the captured alien flagship, General Martinez walked through the corridors with a squad of Marines. The ship was massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built, but now it belonged to Earth. Martinez was studying the alien technology, taking notes on everything he saw. He found Admiral Zexithara in the command center, surrounded by human technicians who were downloading data from the ship's computers. The reptilian admiral looked defeated, his scales dull and his eyes focused on the floor. "Admiral," Martinez said, pulling up a chair, "I think we need to talk." Zexithara looked up slowly. "What do you want, human?" "You have already won." Martinez leaned back in his chair. "I want you to understand what just happened here. This was not a battle between Earth and the Council. This was a job interview, The alien admiral's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? For the past 60 years, every time your people made contact with humanity, we were studying you. Every trade agreement was intelligence gathering. Every diplomatic meeting was reconnaissance. We learned your weaknesses, your tactics, your technology. We prepared for this day because we knew it would come. Zexathara hissed softly. You planned this war. We planned to survive, Martinez corrected. But what happened next was your choice. You could have treated us as equals. Instead, you tried to make us slaves. That was your mistake. On the main screen in the command center, President Blake appeared. She was broadcasting to the entire galaxy, using the quantum virus her teams had planted in the Council's communication network years earlier. Her message was being heard on hundreds of worlds across dozens of star systems. People of the galaxy, she began. The age of Council domination is ending. For 300 years you have lived under their rule, forced to surrender your freedom for the promise of peace. Today, humanity offers you something different. True partnership among equals. As she spoke, reports began flooding in from across the galaxy. On the mining world of Kepler-7, where Zexathara had crushed a rebellion 5 years earlier, workers were attacking Council facilities with weapons that had appeared from hidden caches. On the trade hub of Centauri Station, merchant families were declaring independence with the backing of mysterious human allies. Ambassador Vexhai stood beside Blake during the broadcast. The tall, gray-skinned alien looked directly into the camera as he spoke. I have worked with humanity for 15 years, studying their methods and learning their ways. They do not conquer through fear like the Council. They inspire through hope. On 17 different worlds, resistance movements that had been secretly funded and equipped by human agents for the past decade began their uprising simultaneously. The weapons they used were human-made, but designed to look like local technology. The tactics they employed had been taught by human advisors who had lived among them for years. Dr. Kevin Thompson watched the reports from his laboratory on Europa. His biological weapons had not been needed in the battle, but they served another purpose. Every alien species now knew that humans could create diseases specifically designed to target them. It was not a threat, just a demonstration of capability. Colonel Jake Harrison monitored communications from his position in deep space. The quantum virus was spreading through the Council's network faster than they could contain it. Military bases across 3 sectors were reporting system failures. The carefully planned attack was exploiting weaknesses in alien technology that his teams had discovered during years of covert research. Sir, reported his communications officer, we're receiving reports from our agents in Council space. 37 worlds have declared independence in the last 6 hours. The Council fleet response has been minimal. Harrison nodded. That's because their response fleet was right here trying to conquer Earth. We didn't just defeat their invasion force. We destroyed their ability to maintain control of the galaxy. Back in his holding cell, Admiral Zexathara finally understood the full scope of what had happened. The humans had not just prepared for war with the Council. They had prepared to replace it entirely. Every move the Council had made in the past 60 years had been anticipated and planned for. The battle at Earth was never about defending one world. It was about demonstrating to the entire galaxy that the Council could be beaten. Now that demonstration was complete, and the galaxy was in revolt. Outside his cell window, Zexathara could see human ships working alongside vessels from a dozen different species. The revolution was already becoming a new alliance with humanity at its center. He closed his eyes and tried not to think about what would happen next. 6 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy looked completely different. Captain Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Terran Liberty, watching as ships from 12 different species worked together to build a massive space station. The station would serve as the headquarters for the new Terran Alliance, a voluntary union of worlds that had chosen freedom over domination. Rodriguez was now admiral of the first human expeditionary fleet, commanding vessels from dozens of species. Her bridge crew included humans, the blue-skinned Aquanas, the gray travelers, and even some reformed Draconas who had abandoned the old Council ways. It was strange to work alongside former enemies, but Rodriguez had learned that most aliens were not evil, just trapped in a system they could not escape. Admiral, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, we're receiving a distress call from the Kepler-7 system. A Council remnant fleet is attacking the civilian population. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Not all of the Council forces had surrendered after Earth. Some die-hard loyalists still fought to restore the old order, using terror tactics against defenseless colonies. Set course for Kepler 7. Maximum speed. The Terran Liberty and her escort fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, crossing the galaxy in hours instead of months. The new alliance had combined human engineering with alien technology to create ships faster than anything the old Council had possessed. On Mars, Dr. Kevin Thompson walked through the halls of the Institute for Interspecies Understanding, observing students from 43 different species learning together. Thompson was 54 years old now, his gray hair completely white but his eyes still sharp behind his glasses. The former prisoner of war had become one of the galaxy's leading experts on alien biology and culture. His greatest discovery had shocked the scientific community across hundreds of worlds. Human adaptability was literally unique in the galaxy. Every other species had evolved to fit specific environments and then stopped changing. Only humans continued to evolve, to learn, to grow. This explained why they had advanced so quickly compared to alien civilizations that had remained the same for thousands of years. Professor Thompson called one of his students, a young Chitauri named Buzek. Why did the Council stop advancing technologically 300 years ago? Thompson smiled at the insect-like alien. Buzek was incredibly intelligent, but like all his species, he thought in very rigid patterns, because they achieved what they thought was perfection. They believed they had learned everything worth learning. Humans never make that mistake. In the Kepler 7 system, Admiral Rodriguez arrived to find a scene of destruction. 3 Council ships were bombarding the planet's surface while civilian evacuation vessels tried to escape. The attacking ships were old but still dangerous, commanded by fanatics who would rather destroy worlds than lose control of them. This is Admiral Rodriguez of the Terran Alliance. She broadcast on all frequencies. Council vessels, you are ordered to cease fire and surrender immediately. The response came from Admiral Korthak, a Draconis officer who had refused to accept the new order. Human scum, I will never surrender to primitives like you. This world belonged to the Council for 200 years, Rodriguez sighed. She had hoped to avoid bloodshed, but some people would never learn. All ships engage the enemy. Try to disable rather than destroy, but protect the civilians at all costs. The battle was brief and one-sided. The Council ships were outnumbered and outgunned by vessels using technology they had never seen before. Within minutes, 2 of the attacking ships were disabled and the third was fleeing toward deep space. On New Geneva Station, the massive structure being built in Earth orbit, President Blake prepared for the most important speech of her career. She was no longer just the President of Earth, but the Secretary General of the Terran Alliance, representing 67 species across hundreds of worlds. Blake was 49 years old now, her brown hair showing streaks of silver, but her blue eyes remained as sharp and determined as ever. She wore a simple blue dress with the New Alliance symbol on her collar, a stylized image of hands from different species reaching toward the stars. The assembly hall was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Tall travelers sat next to short furry miners from the asteroid belts. Aquatic species in breathing suits talked with silicon-based life forms that looked like living crystals. It was the most diverse gathering in galactic history. Friends, Blake began, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. 6 months ago, the Galactic Council demanded our surrender. They expected us to submit to their authority and accept permanent subjugation. Instead, we showed them something they had forgotten, that free peoples working together are stronger than any empire built on fear. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Species that had been enemies for centuries now worked side by side, united by their shared desire for freedom. But in a private meeting room deep within the station, Blake discussed classified reports with General Martinez and Admiral Rodriguez. The celebration outside was real, but so were the threats they faced. The quantum telescope array has detected movement beyond the galactic rim, Martinez reported. His hair was completely gray now, his face lined with the stress of building a galactic government from nothing. Something big is coming. Blake studied the reports on her tablet. Ancient ruins had been found on dead worlds throughout the galaxy, evidence of a civilization that had once spanned the entire galactic cluster before vanishing mysteriously. Now it seemed they might be returning. How long do we have? She asked. Rodriguez checked her datapad. The analysis suggests maybe 10 years before they reach our space. Whatever destroyed the ancient civilization is still out there. Blake nodded slowly. This was why humanity had worked so hard to unite the galaxy. The Council had never been the real enemy, just an obstacle preventing the cooperation that would be needed when the true threat arrived. Then we have work to do, she said with that same cold smile that had become famous across the galaxy. The old Council spent 300 years fighting each other while the real enemy prepared. We will not make the same mistake. Outside the meeting room, the celebration continued. Representatives from dozens of worlds signed agreements to share technology, resources, and knowledge. The galaxy was finally working together instead of fighting itself. But deep in space beyond the edge of the galaxy, ancient machines stirred to life after millennia of silence. They had destroyed one galactic civilization already. Now they were returning to finish the job. The galaxy would need every ally, every weapon, and every advantage it could find. Fortunately, it now had something it had never possessed before: humanity's gift for turning enemies into friends and preparing for wars that had not yet begun. The real test of the Terran Alliance was still to come.